Thanks for joining us today on Cece and Doc Talk, where we talk about everything under the sun. You never know quite what you're going to get, but you'll always be entertained.
Hello and welcome to Cece and Doc Talk. Cece sprung a question on me this morning. Top places that we've traveled to. And I was like,
the coolest places
we've traveled to. And at first I thought, that should be easy. Oh, so seemingly easy, but not easy to answer. So, all right.
Well, that's because I made you narrow it down to a top three and you couldn't.
So top three places internationally that we've been, but why? So share the short story behind the experience that goes with it.
Oh gosh. What do you mean why? Oh, why it's your top?
Yeah. Why does it come to mind as your top three?
Okay, so Africa is definitely number one. It's the one place that I tell people, even if you have to go into debt to go there, that you should go. Going to Africa is life-changing because not only is it beautiful and amazing and you get to see animals and creatures that you've never seen before, but the people there are so incredible and inspiring and happy. And so many of them are happy with very, very little. And so, you realize...
They have a T-shirt on that's ripped and only one shoe, and their toy is a lizard outside with a stick.
And they're happy. They're happy and they're joyous and they're kind and loving and welcoming. And it's life-changing. It also makes you really appreciate what you have. And again, the safari experience, this photo safari experience.
And of course the dolphin experience was a highlight. Yeah.
Yes. And we went to Zanzibar and did this amazing swim with the dolphins thing where you get on this really old beat up wooden boat that's leaking with a motor and a couple of guys
barely a motor
who take you out to the middle of the ocean, find a pod of dolphins and basically shove you off and say, go swim. And that's your introduction to swimming with the dolphins. And then you get back on the boat and you do that 5 times.
And how well did you do keeping up with those dolphins?
Not very well at all. But
you gave it your best.
But I did get to swim with the dolphins, and that made me happy. And I never wanted. I've never been a fan of that bobbing with dolphins thing you do in a pool where they're captive. And so this felt a little bit better. And for the record, we were not chasing the dolphins. These men kind of knew where they were.
Well,
anyway.
They just kind of go in front of the pod. You jump off the boat and you look down and they swim underneath you. You swim with them for 30 seconds and then they pick you up and you go do it again. And it was fun.
Yeah. So
it was all of $35.
That's why Africa is my number one. All right. What's your number one?
My number one international is going to be, I'm going to take Italy. And I love how we did Italy, and it's because we did it with backpacks, so we didn't have rollerboard suitcases. We had some reservations and kind of knew the itinerary, but we didn't have reservations for every night. And because we just had backpack, we were very mobile, and so we could jump on the trains and go to the different cities. So we flew into Nice, went down to Monte Carlo, and then we went to Cinque Terre, and then we went up to Milan. And then we went over to Venice, and then we were supposed to fly down to Nice, but there was an airplane strike, so we jumped on a train, and we were just very flexible in what we could do. And we would walk into a town, and it would say room for rent, and we would just say, "Is this still available?" And they'd say yes, and we'd stay there, and then. Yeah. And we would just kind of tool around. So by being the freedom within, so 17 cities in 17 days or
19 cities in 19 days.
Yeah, and we just kind of went all around, all the way down to Positano. And what happened is I looked at your
Pinterest
board, and I saw all the places you had of Italy out there, and I just
all those colorful houses in Cinque Terre hanging off the cliffs.
And you wanted to go to Murano and Baratto and see the glass, and we wanted to go to Venice, and so I just kind of mapped out a route and kind of had a general of what we were going to do, and I had all the train schedules, and then off we went. But we did it as backpacking.
It was truly I don't know that I ever expected to be so enamored with Italy, and I still am. And I can remember, you see pictures of Venice, but I can remember us getting off the train and walking down the stairs literally to the water where all the houses are right along the water, and I was in awe.
And the taxis are all the boats.
I was almost moved to tears. It was such a powerful experience. And
that's where we had that really cool steak. What was that?
Chills. The Fiorentina.
Oh, where it's like soaked in butter for 3 days and then it melts in your mouth.
Yes, and it's like 3 pounds of steak. And we met new friends there from Australia.
And we still
Sandy and Paul, and they were shocked because we ate the whole thing.
Oh yeah, we are
We were
not
starving.
shy on eating.
We were starving.
Yeah, and all the food. Oh my God, it was culinary night. Okay, so
Exactly.
that was Italy.
Italy.
I mean, again, we are just again having the freedom within, but some sort of plans.
Yep. So my number 2 is Japan, and I don't know that I expected to really enjoy Japan as much as I did, and now I wish we had a little bit more time there. We did Japan on a few days on a layover as on our way to Guam, and it was just the coolest place. First of all, it was super clean. And many people there wore masks. This was long before COVID because, I remember us having that conversation about people wearing masks there, and was it a politeness thing because they weren't feeling well? Was it an allergy thing? Was it they didn't want to get sick from other people? And actually it's all of the above, but in Japan, there was a lot of courtesy around keeping other people. I don't know. We just found the mask thing to be it was so normalized over there, and that was way before COVID. But then there were just so many. But
we would just find gardens,
yep.
And we would find sanctuaries, and we would find temples, and we would just walk and explore.
I could have spent more time there for sure. It was just an amazing experience, and so I'm really glad that we had it, because I don't know that Tokyo and Japan would have been on our bucket list,
absolutely not,
so to speak. But
yeah.
I'm so grateful now that we went.
Well, and then mine will be Thailand.
Yes,
we jumped down to Thailand, and 2 things make Thailand really special.
From Hong Kong.
Yeah, and one is I scheduled a live aboard snorkel trip into the Andaman Sea, and we went so far out you could see Burma. I mean, we were way out there.
It was for snorkelers, not divers.
Yes,
which was
so great. It was snorkelers, and so we would do like 4 snorkel stops every day. We would do a morning one, and then a midday, and then an afternoon or an evening one.
And we had this crotchety German captain of our boat, and this boat was painted like the reggae queen. And
this thing, I don't know how crazy. It made it anywhere, but it did, and it was just so fun, and it was a culinary delight. There was a woman chef on board, and she would make 3 or 4 different curry dishes, and so we got to try different things that we had never tried. And eating all this different seafood that I would have probably never ate, but it was just so phenomenal. It was just a culinary beautiful delight. And but the snorkeling, we got to see the Nemo fishes and the anemones and the lionfish, and we got to see fish that we'd have never seen anywhere else. And the coral over there is still alive and beautiful. And then the other thing that I loved about Thailand was we went to that night market. And we would take the boat down to the night market, and we would have our backpacks, and we would just loaded it up with all these gifts and stuff to bring home.
All the knockoffs, like we got Rolex knockoffs and the purse knockoffs, and
which pretty much none of them are working, but it was fun. Yeah. All right, so Thailand was cool.
That's funny. So my third one, it's funny because I was going to say Hong Kong, but then you reminded me about New Zealand. And that was our first trip together our first big, actually it was my first big international trip at all, ever. It was back in 2002, 2003.
2002,
yeah. And, 3. And so that whole experience of just having, your first big international trip, I think we used a lot of miles and flew business class.
We did.
And so that was, of course, really fun. And then, going to New Zealand, we did the North Island, we did the South Island. That was, and back then I was afraid of heights. And so Doc took it upon herself to help me cure my fear of heights by aversion therapy. And so we skydived, we bungee jumped, and we ice climbed, which also meant rappelling into these big ass ice holes that, had these ice spikes sticking up out of them. And they said if a Jeep fell down into there, they might not see it out the other end for 40 years. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And we also slid down some of the tallest sand dunes
with the sleds,
with sleds. And so New Zealand was it was such a cool experience, but it was almost like being back in the 1950s in a way. Like life was still very simple sort of there in some ways. And there were some things that just weren't like completely modernized yet, but the best
lasagna ever.
Oh, and the best lasagna ever.
That's a different story.
That is a different story, but the best lasagna ever, as we found out many years later, actually has bechamel sauce in it. And so now, of course, we only make our lasagna with bechamel sauce. But that too is a fun story. But yeah, New Zealand was it was such a cool, fantastic experience. And we did get to stop over in Sydney, Australia. So we got to see the Australian Opera House and the best drag show we'd ever seen in our entire lives. And so, we met Archie. Remember the guy Archie? And
oh my gosh,
they came over to our table and they started drinking wine, and I don't know, they were probably in their 60s or something. He was probably in his 70s, maybe. But made new friends. It was just that was a cool trip for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All right, so what's your third?
My third is going to be the South Pacific. So we, again, so there was some elements of surprises because we flew into Tahiti, but then we went over to Moorea for a few nights. And Moorea, snorkeling off of one of the overwater bungalows, it was an overwater bungalow trip. So we did 3 different islands and 3 different overwater bungalows. And Moorea surprised us because the snorkeling there was phenomenal. Of course, the first night we get there, we go off of the platform, get in the water, and I see a shark. And it's kind of at sunset, and I'm like,
and
okay.
I'm out. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah, she walked on me to get onto the platform to get out, and of
course, they're little black tip reef sharks. As I know now, they're not dangerous, but I didn't know that at the time. So
when you get in the water and it's kind of at dusk, right at sunset, and there's a shark,
I walked on water.
Okay, so but then we went over to Bora Bora. And we were in an overwater bungalow on the Hilton there for 11 nights.
We cashed in all of our hotel points.
Yeah, 10 years of saving up hotel points for this trip. Yeah. And so I know at the time it was like over 600,000, 700,000 hotel points to stay at that hotel for 11 nights. And we didn't do a lot of excursions. We went swimming with the sharks. We went out with the manta rays, or we
took the little boat to town every day to get bread and beer.
It was so expensive. Oh my gosh, breakfast.
Well, in town it wasn't expensive, but on the resort it was ridiculous.
Yeah, $50 a person for a breakfast buffet. Right. That was breakfast buffet.
So we ate enough to last us all day until we could get bread and beer. Get our little 50-cent loaf of bread and a $6 6-pack of beer.
Yeah, but we hung out at the resort. I mean, we swam in the pool, we sat on a veranda, and we just watched we watched the world swim by, and we sat there and read. We each took a chapter from Eat, Pray, Love and read it out loud, and we just hung out. And it was probably one of the first vacations where it wasn't like go, 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 where we just hung out. And I learned the beauty and the magic of that.
Yep, absolutely. And that was a cool trip for sure. And
all right, do you want to go
domestic?
Should we go domestic?
All right, let's go domestic. Top 3.
I'm going to go, it's kind of domestic, but Banff.
Yeah, that's domestic. It's North America.
All right. Well, it's torn between Banff and Alaska because I loved some of our excursions in Alaska, but I loved that we did Banff. We flew in, again, we didn't have hotel reservations on that one, and we rented a car that we could sleep in the back, and we toured around Banff, and we went to a local hiking store to find out where we could sleep.
Yep.
And, we'd do poach camping. That's what they call it. It's boondocking. Mm-hmm. And we grabbed a cooler and had some of our camping gear with, so we just drove around Jasper and Banff and all that and hung out, and we got to see Calgary and the Olympic Stadium up there and have hot dogs for breakfast because that's all we had left in our cooler for cooking that morning, and it was a beautiful little trip that was just kind of a free-flowing one.
It was awesome. It was a trip on the cheap, but we really enjoyed it. And it's funny because you just said you were going to cheat a little bit. I don't think it's cheating. We're just going to say North America is domestic because number 1 on my list is going to be Isla Mujeres. Not only because we had a condo there for a lot of years and we actually thought we were going to be moving there as expats once Amy retired. That things changed and shifted over the years and that didn't happen. But our very first experience with Isla Mujeres, the whole reason why we bought the condo there was we actually had this. We stayed in a hotel that was out on the edge of like the reef. It's
actually called Mia Reef.
On Playa Norte, which is the North Beach, and we literally, that was another one of those vacations where we really just sat around a lot, and we laid out in the sun, and we had cocktails, and we just luxuriated in the whole experience, and
we actually relaxed.
You had been having a really rough time at work, and so we actually relaxed, and so I remember, was it you or me who said, what if we just chucked it all and moved here? And I'm like, okay.
I go, what if we sold everything and bought a place down here and moved here? And you go, okay. And I go, I'm serious. And you said, I am too. And so we spent the next year and a half finding
traveling
a place.
back and forth to Isla Mujeres.
And we did find a place. And then we had it for 5 years. And then we realized the cartels are getting a little closer. There's some other reasons, whatever. It
was less about the cartels and more about the crowds. I mean, the whole
island got discovered.
Had become so discovered and overpopulated, and the tourism was just insane. And then, yes, little by little, some of the cartel action, which had at one time never really touched Cancun and Isla Mujeres hardly at all,
Was coming there.
was starting to get a little worse. And so between the number of people there and the congestion, and I mean, we're talking about an island that's only like a
completely
half mile, it's only a half a mile wide and 5 miles long, you know, and basically golf carts.
It's all golf carts. And at one
island.
point in time, you could cruise around on the golf cart and it was fine. But all of a sudden, the whole island turned into a parade of golf carts where it was just one after the next after
And
the
cars
next.
and honking horns. And here's the thing. It once was this beautiful, peaceful
Quiet,
little
peaceful.
tropical paradise, and it became no longer quiet and peaceful. It really became like the party island. And that just wasn't our scene. And so it was time. It was time for us
But
to
you're
go.
right. That's a magical experience, too.
So that's my number one.
Yeah. Okay. So then I'm going to go to Alaska. We've been there multiple times, and we've done it where we've, hung out in Juneau for a couple weeks. We had a client up there, but from there we jumped on the Alaska Marine Ferries, and we went down to Wrangell and went to a bear observatory. We went out to Hoonah and went on a private boat to go play with the whales
Whale
all
watching.
day, whale watching, and see where they bubble net and feed and breach and all that, and it was just, and then we went to the what was the glacier?
In Alaska, keep talking, it'll come to me.
Tracy Arm. It was the
Oh,
Tracy
we went
Arm.
to the Tracy Arm Glacier, yeah.
Yeah.
But we also climbed on a glacier just outside of
Oh, the
Juneau.
Mendenhall.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was just a great experience up there. But then we did more than that. We went to Anchorage and drove up to Fairbanks, and this is where we had our backpacks and we did camping, and we had our tent, and so we went down to the Homer Spit. Loved the Homer Spit area, and then over by Seward, and then all the way up to the Changa Hot Springs, which is north of Fairbolt or Fairbanks, sorry. And up to the North Pole. If you've never been to North Pole,
Gotta go to
Alaska,
North
at least
Pole.
that's where Santa lives.
That's where Santa lives.
And all the street lights are all the candy canes, and it's year round North Pole Santa.
Well, Santa lives there, that's why.
And Mrs. Claus is there too,
Yeah.
and reindeer right outside. So yeah, it's just Alaska is magical.
Yeah, and the seaplanes coming in and out of the bay and
Sitting
Juneau are
there
just
at the
so
hangar
romantic.
restaurant.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to end up on a seaplane because that's still on my bucket list. So.
Okay, all right.
Oh wow! So I have. What do I have? Do I have two more? I believe it or not, there's one right in our own backyard. It's always been one of my happy places, and it's the sand dunes. And one of the reasons, I mean, I have always loved the sand dunes. It's so unusual to be just traveling, and then all of a sudden, up pop the is it the largest
tallest-
sand dune, the tallest sand dune,
the highest sand dune in North America.
in North America, right here in our backyard, and we always used to climb up and sled down and just we used to use our snowshoes to go up because it keeps you from sinking and all these cool fun things that we did at the sand dunes. But a couple of years ago we did backcountry camping at the sand dunes, which we'd never done before, and you basically have to climb in, you have to climb up and in, you have to go up and in at least a mile outside of, away from the populace, and they only allow so many people in a night. How many is it?
It's only like 12 or 20 people for overnight camping a night.
And you're not supposed to really camp near somebody else.
No campfires
so you
or anything.
Spread out. And so it was literally like camping on Mars.
It was super cool to look out. It's like, oh my gosh, it's all just sand. And we would try to go on full moons.
Right. And there's
But with
always
a
a little bit
storm.
of a fear factor. We actually went twice, and there's a little bit of a fear factor because if a storm comes in, apparently I think it's
Like
magnesium or something in the sand that makes the lightning literally skip across the sand and could totally kill you. And so if a storm comes in, they basically tell you, you've got to be able to get your ass off those dunes before it hits.
Yeah.
So that means packing up all your gear and hiking your ass out in the middle of the night. And the night that we were there, there were storms.
a little bit of
They
lightning,
were far off in the distance, but we were seeing the lightning, and we were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have to make a run for it." Because of course we can't do anything that's just normal without like huge adventure and adrenaline rushes happening. So anyway, but the sand dunes have always been one of my happy places. And then in the spring, the Medno River runs through the sand dunes, and then it basically just sinks down into the sand.
The commonality between
magic.
all these is there's a sense of serenity and peace and beauty and adventure and excitement.
Yes.
Which leads me to my third favorite is Hawaii. And we've been to many islands, but to go and I'm a waterfall connoisseur, and so I like to try to find the waterfalls, even if you have to hike to them and then outrun the flash flood coming at you, but just to go listen to the Slack Key guitar concerts. And so we've done Hawaii, where we've stayed in timeshares and Airbnb, and we've also been fortunate enough to stay in the Ritz-Carlton, a business trip, and some other. So we've got the full gamut of Hawaii.
We learned to surf there.
We've learned to surf and just hanging out, and it's a beautiful place.
We've been to the Big Island, Maui, Oahu, and is that
Kauai.
it? And Kauai.
Yep,
yes.
the Garden Island.
And actually, the last time we went to the Big Island, and we swam with dolphins in the wild. A little bit different than Zanzibar. It was a little more controlled. But it was still. But I actually did make eye contact that time. Like those pods there were just huge. Whereas in Zanzibar, it was
you
like
made
3 or 4.
eye contact with the dolphin right before they all shit and swam. I mean, because we swam right through their poop. You could see it.
And of course,
I have it on film.
You do have that on film. And then the other thing that we did that was so cool the last time that we'd been wanting to do was swam with the manta rays.
Yeah,
that was
night diving with the manta rays.
That was quite the experience.
And of course, it was a very wavy, windy night, but we still went and did it.
That was quite the experience.
All right, we are about at time. Do you have a third one?
I get one more. Gosh, there are just so many wonderful places that we've been. I'm gonna pick Utah, because when we went on that trip, again, it was a camping trip. We went with my mom. We took our camper and we gave her the choice. We said, "You want to go north, south, east, or west?"
From where we were living in Colorado.
Where we were living in Colorado at the time. And she said she wanted to go west. So we went to Utah.
We had zero reservations. We got in the car and said, let's go north, south, east, or west.
And we ended up hiking all the national parks in Utah, visiting all the national parks in Utah, hiking Bryce Canyon. And it was a wonderful trip.
Arches.
It really was.
And we ended up all the way down at the Grand Canyon, the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
We did, because my mom had never been to the Grand Canyon.
So we
ended up all the way down to the Grand Canyon, so she could at least look out over the canyon. And speaking of the Grand Canyon, I know I'm not allowed to have 4, but our hike down to Havasupai a few years before that was quite spectacular as well. So that's my top 3.
These sound like wonderful things. So the moral of the story is get out, live bold. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just find a way to do it. Again, part of the secrets of Cindy and I being able to travel on a regular basis is that we don't do anniversary, birthday, or Christmas presents, but every year we do a trip somewhere. And as you can hear, a lot of our favorite ones, we've backpacked,
that far away, and
we've slept in the vehicle. We've brought camping gear with as our luggage. Or pick up stuff along the way.
Because without the points that are acquired from work travel and flights and stuff like that,
we're really cheap. And you can rent RVs cheaply these days. Well, I mean, relative to $350 hotel room or whatever. Right. And Airbnb, there's stuff out there so make it happen. Live bold. Get out there.
And we don't say these things to make anybody jealous. We actually are saying them hopefully to inspire and encourage you to get out there and enjoy. And quite frankly, we have not allowed COVID to stop us from enjoying. We just now use our RV and we're fully self-contained. We're not in a position where we're ready to get on a plane yet, or ready to travel internationally, or, to do those things. So we are finding ways to still get out and explore and have adventures despite those things. Some of you are in a different place and you're ready to travel, get on a plane, do all those things. That's fine too. You do what's in your comfort zone, and sometimes it's okay to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But the bottom line is really just
play,
experience and play, and really find ways to enjoy and live life outside of the box a little bit when you can.
Absolutely. Okay. Get out. Have fun.
Thanks for tuning in to CC and Doc Talk. We'd love for you to follow us on social media at CC and Doc. That's CCNDOC. And you can visit our website at ccanddoc.com. We also take monthly donations to support this broadcast if you're so inclined. We'd love to hear your comments, suggestions, and questions, and we'll do our best to respond. Thanks, and have a fantabulous day.